Okay, here we go. Chapter 13, attraction, love, and communication, right? So how do we meet people? How do we find ourselves with somebody? How do we start any kind of relationship? How does that come and develop, etc., right? So we want to know sexual attraction, right? We have a physical type that we're attracted to, whatever that may be. And that could change throughout your lifetime, but there's certain things. And of course, hopefully, the media hasn't like built your person because, that person may or may not exist in your world. But at any rate, right? We have sexual attraction, we have love, and then how do we communicate during all of this? And we talked about communication a lot, right, during this class and how important it is to your life. And then, of course, we have your 10 questions embedded in sexual attraction. So, um, I, uh, I'm in class. And across the room, I see somebody who gathers my attention, who I find attractive, right? And what happens after that, right? That's how do two people meet, and then what happens after that, right? But the first, typically, I see somebody somewhere, clubs, campus, church, wherever you go, like wherever you socialize, maybe even just friends of the family, big parties, whatever. Right. But I see somebody that intrigues me, and I go and try to start a conversation, meet them, whatever the case may be, right? And then see what happens. Or it could be that I've been friends with somebody for a long time and never thought of them romantically, and now all of a sudden I do. So, is when you see that person, is your first thought about sex? It very well could be, right? So how do you do that, right? We have desire and attraction, right? Uh, so how does that work between two people? Right? Because then you have, right? Then there's people you're attracted to, you want a different, and they don't, right? So we don't always work out that we want. Right? So then attractive people get benefits. It's just the way of the world. They get higher social status. People prefer to see them, do them, right? Even here, like infants prefer to look at more attractive faces. Now, what is an attractive face to an infant is not the image that the media present, right? So there's symmetry, there's all these things, color, like all these things that go into um, making someone attractive to somebody else. And of course, all of that is still, again, based a lot on your upbringing and your culture and your family and your religion and all that stuff about what you find attractive. Sexiness. Um, we all may not have the same standards, right? We all live by different rules individually. There's the big rules, and then there's our personal rules. Chemistry and attraction, right? We talk about this. What are the things that we find attractive? Here's your questions. So this is the similarity breeds relationships or complementary, right? So I will tell you, me and my wife are very different. We're the complementary opposites people, pretty much. I mean, you have a certain sharing, but for in a lot of ways, we are very different, right? And of course, the biological attraction. Um, the first off, what we see, right? but then how that interaction goes. Remember, we talked about pheromones and stuff, and how does that attraction build in biologically to make us move in a certain way, or, proceed in a certain way? Uh, Exotic becomes erotic, sexual scripts. We as a couple have a script, right? This is which is basically about the rules that we have in our relationship. Hopefully, those rules are based on what? Communication. I'm going to say it again. Love is essential to sexual well-being. Angry, yeah. So intimacy, passion, and commitment, right? So we talked about this. We may monogamous or polygamous. What is our level of commitment? Is that a shared level of commitment? Are we both on the same page? Here's your Sternberg's theory of the triangle of love. And you're going to read that in depth. Um, Here's some more theories of love. Uh, and so you're gonna all of these you will read about. I'm not gonna go through that little chart. Attachment theory. So people are able to love more deeply than others sometimes. I guess that's maybe thing. But anyway, as a child, you attach to somebody or you don't. Um, That's right. So here it is. So infants have secure, anxious, or avoidant attachments, and these attachment styles affect you for the rest of your life. And they're very hard to overcome. It takes a lot of work, personal change, and growth. If you have an avoidant or anxious attachment theory, and it can create an issue establishing positive relationships with people because you have trust issues. The attachment is a whole world in therapy and all of that. So if you stay in psychology, if you're in social sciences, you're going to learn a lot about that in the DSM at some point in time, right? It's like one, maybe you got some of it. How do we break up? Why do we break up? Right? Communications. How do we talk about sex? Did your parents teach you about sex? Did your parents pass along rules or what they think or safety and risks and all those things? And then did you and your partner have the same experience? So here we got emotional literacy and emotional work. We talk about that attachment problem and how that keeps you from really attaching to another human being later in life. Sex language, like all these things that can happen. Uh, and a good sexual communicator is a skill that you build. You're not typically born that way. Ah, nonverbal communication, right? You keep making eye contact with somebody across a space. You grow closer, you're smiling at them. You maybe, are trying to see if they're going to react the same way you are. Nonverbal messages. Um, and this is how it goes, right? So eventually, those nonverbal messages hopefully lead to a verbal interaction. Um, but it's a continued form of communication throughout the relationship. Uh, Skills and tips, nonverbal. How do we for communication, styles of communication, the characteristics of ineffective communicator, right? Criticism, defensiveness, stonewall, all these blockades to communications. I don't know if you've ever taken a communications class, It's probably a good idea if you're going to stay in the social sciences to take a communications class. I'm part of my minor in undergraduate school, that matters. Um, and again, more characteristics of ineffective communication, stonewalling. So, how do we prove this? How do you fight? In a long term relationship, you're going to fight. How do you fight? That's how you're going to like really learn how to communicate. Like, how do you communicate when you're mad at each other, when you're disagreeing? How do you fight? And do you play by the rules? Have you established rules? Those kind of things. Again, just how important communication is, right? I've used that word a lot in this class. Uh, Physical attraction in your pursuit. Well, obviously, I think that's most of us are pretty clear. We're physically attracted first, typically. What is love to you and what characteristics are important? How comfortable are you discussing sex? And does your partner know your sexual history? All right, so that's the end of the slides, but I want to show you this. Um, how do we tell liking from love? How do I know if I like somebody a lot or if I love somebody? And of course, we figured out a way to measure that. Come on, there we go. And here it is, Rubin's scale. So you can do this on your own. You can do this for all and over and over for different people that you are in relationships, whether those are friendships or romantic relationships, right? Like here's the love scale, and then you answer these questions and see how you score, right? And so if you're saying, so here's your thing, right? From what on the Likert scale, from 1 to 9, right? So if my loved one was feeling badly, my first duty would be to cheer him or her up. And I'm going to say 7, right? And then I grade every question and then I total it up and I see where the highest scores are, or if I have a high score. All right. So you can go play with this on your own and think about the people you would like to know, right? And see where that goes. Kind of a game, I guess, at this point. But you might if you don't know. Most of us don't know. Like if you've never been in love, you don't know what love is. Right? And so how do you know that I really like somebody or love somebody? So this could be very beneficial. Anyway, that's it for chapter 13, and we're going to move along. Thank you.